The summer heat was heavy as the group of friends pulled into the small coastal town. It seemed perfect at first, quiet, isolated, with a long stretch of golden sand and waves that shimmered under the sun. The locals, however, weren't welcoming. At the diner, an old fisherman leaned in and whispered, "Don't stay by the water after dark. The drowned ones don't like strangers." The friends laughed it off, brushing it aside as a ghost story meant to scare tourists. That night, while sitting by the fire pit near their rented beach house, they swore they heard faint whispers carried by the wind, like voices tangled in the crash of the waves. The sound grew louder, circling them in the darkness, though no one else was on the beach. Uneasy but trying to stay brave, they convinced themselves it was just the ocean. But the night felt heavier than it should. The morning sun broke through, painting the shore in light, yet something was disturbingly wrong. As they stepped outside, they froze. Wet footprints trailed across the sand leading from the ocean straight to their beach house. The prints were bare, larger than any of theirs, and strangely uneven, as though whoever left them walked with a limp. Even more unsettling, the tracks circled the entire house, pressing deeper into the sand at certain spots, before veering off and disappearing back into the waves. The group argued over what it could be, maybe a prank from locals, maybe a drunk passerby, but the prints were too deliberate, too chilling. They tried to laugh it away, yet the unease clung to them all day. As evening came, the tide rolled in higher than usual, and when they checked again, the footprints were gone, erased as if nothing had ever happened. Still, the memory stayed. The next evening brought an even more terrifying encounter. One of the girls swam out into the cool dusk waters, eager to wash off the summer heat. But as she floated on her back, her gaze froze. Just beyond the rolling waves, a figure stood upright in the water, waist deep, motionless, staring directly at her. The figure was too still to be human, its silhouette unnaturally dark against the fading horizon. She screamed, thrashing back to shore, but by the time the others ran to her side, the figure had vanished beneath the waves, leaving only ripples. Shaking, she insisted what she saw wasn't her imagination. Later that night at a small diner, they mentioned it nervously to a waitress. Her face went pale as she replied, "Others have seen him too. The watcher doesn't come for everyone, only those marked by the sea." Uneasy silence fell over the table, and for the first time, the friends didn't laugh. A day later, curiosity pushed them further down the shoreline, where they stumbled upon something hidden by the dunes, an abandoned lifeguard tower. Its wood was cracked and weathered by years of storms, the latter half broken, boards nailed across the entrance as though trying to keep something inside. Ignoring the warning, they pried it open and climbed into the creaking space. The air was damp and smelled of salt and rot. On the walls, carved deep into the wood, were chilling words, "Don't swim after dark." But what shook them most was a single name etched again and again, Elias. Some carvings were fresh, too sharp to have aged like the others. Unease settled heavy in their chests. Who was Elias, and why did his name dominate this forgotten tower? As the wind rattled the boards, it felt less like a warning and more like the tower itself wanted them to leave. That night, a thunderstorm swept across the beach, lightning flashing violently over the dark water. The group huddled inside their rental house, the wind howling like voices through the cracks. Suddenly, over the roar of the storm, a man's voice called out, slow and deliberate, repeating each of their names from the shoreline. Terrified, they pressed against the windows but saw nothing except blinding lightning. When the storm finally eased, one of them dared to open the door. The porch was covered with slimy seaweed, heavy and dripping, spread like an offering left behind. No footprints, no intruders, only the stench of brine clinging to the air. They cleaned it quickly, but the unease grew deeper, like the ocean itself had entered their home. That night, none of them slept soundly. Every crash of thunder, every creak of wood, carried the fear that someone, or something, was standing just beyond the glass. Why now? Fear was settling over the group, but things worsened when one friend began changing. At first, it was small, walking to the window at night, staring at the sea for hours without speaking. Then it escalated into full sleepwalking, her bare feet dragging across the sand as though pulled by unseen hands. When the others tried to wake her, she spoke in a voice that wasn't her own, low, raspy, commanding, murmuring about the debt of the sea. Each morning she had no memory of it, yet her hands were always wet, sticky with grains of sand and smelling of salt water. Panic grew as the pattern repeated night after night, and no one could explain it. She wasn't just acting strange. It felt like the ocean had claimed her, whispering to her in ways the others couldn't hear. It was no longer just haunting, it was possession. Desperation led them to dig deeper, searching old town records and speaking quietly to locals who still remembered the stories. They learned that Elias wasn't just a name. He was a sailor who had drowned decades ago during a violent storm, sacrificing himself to save children trapped on a capsized boat. But his death had cursed the beach. The legend said the ocean demanded repayment each summer, dragging one's soul beneath the waves to balance the debt Elias once defied. Suddenly, everything made sense. The footprints, the watcher, the possession. Their friend had been chosen. They realized they had little time before the sea claimed her fully, and every attempt to break the cycle in the past had failed. The more they tried to fight it, the stronger the pull became. They weren't just visitors anymore. They were entangled in a ritual older than the town itself. The final night came too quickly, thick with dread. Their friend vanished into the darkness, her footsteps muffled by the roar of the tide. They sprinted down the shore, screaming her name, but the waves were faster, surging higher than ever before. They rushed in after her, thrashing against the undertow, but the ocean felt alive, grabbing, dragging, pulling them under. Salt water filled their lungs as they fought desperately, each moment more hopeless. When dawn broke, only one of them stumbled back onto the shore, shivering, coughing, half drowned. The beach was eerily silent, the ocean calm as if nothing had happened. In his trembling hands, he clutched a piece of driftwood, worn smooth by the waves. Carved deep into its surface was one chilling word: mine. The survivor would never return to that beach, but the whispers of the drowned ones would haunt him forever.